She wasn't born with privilege, nor did she grow up in a world that celebrated her. To many, she was just the maid, a face they barely noticed, a voice they never cared to hear. But on one unexpected night, everything changed. When she stepped onto that stage, the room filled with laughter, mocking, cruel, certain she didn't belong. Yet what followed would silence every voice, shatter every prejudice, and leave the crowd stunned. How could someone so overlooked hold a power they never saw coming? This is the story they never expected to witness.
Maria had spent most of her life working behind the scenes, cleaning halls, scrubbing floors, and serving tables in places where people barely acknowledged her existence. To the world, she was invisible. Each morning began before sunrise, her hands already aching as she prepared for another long day, while her dreams of something greater stayed buried beneath the weight of survival. But there was one thing no one knew. Dance was her secret refuge. Alone in the quiet corners of her small room, she moved with a grace and fire that told a story words never could. Still, outside those walls, no one believed someone like her could ever belong in the spotlight. They saw only the uniform, never the woman. And on the night she found herself in front of a crowd far beyond her comfort zone, every whisper, every mocking laugh reminded her of the cruel truth. The world wasn't ready to see her shine. But what happened next would challenge everything they thought they knew.
The night of the event should have been simple. The wealthy guests gathered in their glittering gowns and sharp suits, filling the grand hall with chatter and laughter. For Maria, it was just another shift, polishing silverware, carrying trays, staying invisible. She wasn't meant to be seen, only to serve. Yet when the host announced a surprise talent performance and called her name, the room erupted in disbelief. A maid? On their stage? The whispers cut through the air like knives. They laughed, some out of shock, others with a cruel edge, certain this was a mistake. Maria felt the heat rise in her chest. Every step toward the stage felt heavier, as though the entire weight of the room pressed down on her. She knew what they saw, a servant trying to play a game reserved for the privileged. And the sting wasn't just in their words, it was in the history, the long, unspoken rule that people like her were never meant to rise above the floor they cleaned. When the music began, silence swept the hall, but not the kind that welcomed her. It was the silence of expectation, waiting for her to fail. Her heart raced as the rhythm pulsed through the speakers, her body frozen for a moment too long. Then came a cough, a laugh, someone muttering that this would be embarrassing. And that's when the memories came rushing back, the years of hiding her passion, the moments she danced barefoot in her small room, the time she promised herself she would never let anyone take away her fire. Her hands trembled, but she lifted her head. She began to move, not for them, but for herself. The first step was shaky, but as the beat carried her forward, her movements sharpened. The laughter dulled. She spun, leapt, struck the floor with force, her body speaking a language more powerful than words. But the crowd's silence wasn't acceptance, it was disbelief. Could this really be happening? Could the maid they mocked actually belong here? Still, Maria wasn't free. Every twirl felt like defiance, every breath like a rebellion against the eyes that refused to see her humanity. With each move, the tension rose, her performance balancing on the edge of triumph and humiliation. And just when the audience thought they understood what was coming, Maria prepared for a move that no one expected, a choice that could silence them forever or cement their scorn.
The music swelled, and Maria launched into the move that had lived only in her private world. An explosive spin, a leap, and a landing so sharp it echoed across the marble floor. For a moment, the air itself seemed to stop. Gasps rippled through the crowd, but not everyone was impressed. A man in the front row smirked, clapping mockingly, his voice cutting through the silence. Imagine a maid pretending to be an artist. The laughter returned, sharper this time, laced with cruelty. Maria felt her chest tighten, her vision blur. It wasn't just the sound of their scorn. It was every insult, every dismissive glance, every unspoken reminder that people like her were meant to serve, not shine. Years of silence pressed against her, daring her to shrink back into invisibility. But then something inside her broke free. She danced harder, faster. Her body became a storm, unstoppable, furious, alive. Each step was defiance. Each turn was rebellion. The crowd couldn't look away, even as some still sneered. The rhythm of her movement carried a message louder than any words. I belong. I matter. I will not be erased. The hall transformed. No longer just a stage, it became a battlefield of dignity. Maria was fighting not only for herself, but for every unseen, unheard soul whose dreams were buried under prejudice. And as she struck her final pose, chest heaving, eyes fierce, silence crashed down once more. This time, it wasn't the silence of mockery. It was the silence of a truth too powerful to deny. But the question hung in the air like a blade. Would they finally see her worth, or pretend nothing had happened at all?
When Maria's final pose held steady, the hall stood frozen. Some lowered their eyes in shame. Others struggled to hide the disbelief etched across their faces. And then, slowly, hesitantly, applause began. Not from the wealthy elite who had mocked her, but from a few voices at the back, the staff, the overlooked, the unseen. Their claps grew louder, stronger, until the sound filled the room. For the first time, Maria was no longer invisible. She was undeniable. Yet even in that victory, she knew the truth. Applause could fade, prejudice could return. The same people who mocked her might forget her tomorrow, but in that moment, she had forced them to confront something they could not erase: her talent, her dignity, her humanity. Maria's dance was more than a performance. It was resistance. It was a reminder that the world's labels and limits are often built on lies, and that courage, even in the face of ridicule, can rewrite the story. And here's the deeper truth. Maria's story is not hers alone. It echoes in every workplace where someone is underestimated because of their skin, in every classroom where a child is told they'll never succeed, in every voice silenced before it's even heard. So the question lingers: how many more Marias will the world laugh at before finally choosing to listen?